Hey guys and gals, it's Mr. Forgione. Wanted to talk to you guys briefly about the PowerPoint that I had sent out last week on the different types of businesses, and also to just try to help you out a little bit with some of the questions that you may have in doing the assignment. So this sort of little mini unit or week worth of stuff, whatever we want to call it, this is kind of a heavy vocab sort of unit or sort of vocab heavy assignment. So I want to just kind of go through a few of the terms and make sure that we feel fairly decent about some of these different types of businesses. So at the very beginning, we said that there's sort of three types: sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. So I want to spend just a little bit of time on each of those. To begin with, a sole proprietorship. This is where it's one person that owns a business, and basically there's no separation between the person and the business. So believe it or not, almost every one of you has had a sole proprietorship. If you have ever babysat, if you've ever been paid to mow somebody's lawn or to house sit or to do somebody's nails or hair or anything at all like that, you've actually had your own sole proprietorship. Now, you may not have called it that. You may not have even said, well, I have my own business. You probably just said, oh, I'm going to babysit, and they pay cash, and that's about it. But you've actually technically had your own sole proprietorship at that point because you were doing the work, you were getting paid, you weren't being employed by somebody else in a business. You basically ran it. You were the person that was getting paid on that. So that's a sole proprietorship. Now the good thing on there is that you're not required to fill out separate taxes. And realistically, most of us, when we babysit or mow lawns or something like that, we most of the time get paid cash, and we'll just hypothetically say that it's probably unlikely that we claim that cash on our taxes, okay? So that's one of the sort of advantages, we'll say, to a sole proprietorship. Now, the next one is a partnership, and there's different types of partnerships. You could have a lawn care business where you've got a couple people that are working on this, a couple people doing lawns. The main thing that makes that difficult is that you've got to come up with a couple of agreements since there's multiple people involved. How do we split the profits? Who's working at what time? Do we have different clients or different accounts? Who gets what account? If, let's say, we do really well and more people want to get their lawn cut and all of that, do we want to pay somebody else, or rather bring somebody else on with us? What cut of the profits do they get? So all of those things have to be decided in a partnership. Now, you don't have to fill out a separate tax return from the business as individuals there, but you do have to fill out what's called an informational return, or you're supposed to fill out an informational return, basically just saying, hey, this is our partnership, and so on. Now, other types of more formal partnerships at dentist's office or at healthcare facilities, a lot of times you have multiple dentists or multiple doctors that are in the same office. That's a practice or a partnership. Real estate is another area where you have multiple agents in the same practice or in the same partnership. Now, lastly, we have corporations. With corporations, this is where you have filled out paperwork where the business is a completely separate entity from the individuals. Now, people might say, well, why would you ever do that? Well, there's a couple reasons that you might want to do it. The first is what we call limited liability. Limited liability means that if you get sued, let's say that you have a lawn care business, but you've made it a corporation. If while you're mowing the grass, a rock kicks up and it kicks into somebody's house, breaks the window, goes inside, and let's say it hits the dog that they have in there and breaks a bone in the dog's leg or something like that. So if you're not having a corporation, if you're just a separate, you are the business, they can actually sue you, and you're going to have to pay out of pocket for legal costs and things of that nature. If you're found guilty of something, you would have to pay for that. However, if you have it filed separate as a corporation, now it's only the corporation that has to pay. So they can only come after the things that are in the corporation's named assets, the named cash for the corporation. So that can save you some money because people do have a lot of times frivolous lawsuits or lawsuits that are not really they're not really, I don't want to say good, but that are kind of ridiculous, right? We've all heard about different ridiculous lawsuits. Now, the other advantage of a corporation is that once you have a corporation, if the business catches on, you can end up making an awful lot of money by selling stock. Shares of stock, basically, that means shares of ownership within a corporation. And you can sell that stock if you're a corporation and make a lot of money. So, the founders of Google, as an example, there was something like, I can't remember, about a dozen, 8 to 12, somewhere in that ballpark, founders of Google. Back in 2003 or 2004, they said, okay, we want to go public, we want to issue stock. And so they had what's called an IPO, an initial public offering where people could buy stock. That group of people in one day raised 19 billion with a B, $19 billion in one day for selling stock. So that obviously allowed them to be able to pretty much quit and do whatever they wanted if they so chose. So that's another advantage to corporations. It allows you to eventually sell stock and then get rich if the company takes off and if people want to buy in your business. Okay, a couple of other things in there. We talked about mergers. There's a lot of companies that want to either buy out other companies or join with other companies. The main reason they want to do that is to be able to reach a different group of customers, a different group of clientele. Right now, one of the biggest mergers that's in the process of going through is Sprint and T-Mobile, which we may have talked about a little bit. Sprint and T-Mobile are partnering up, and they're merging together, and the goal is to try to get more clients, more customers in that way. So mergers are essentially two companies come together, or one company buys out another company. And then conglomerates are basically where you take that to the extreme. That's where one company owns lots of other either sub-companies, what we sometimes call subsidiaries, owns different brands. So a good example of this would be Yum Brands. Yum Brands is a conglomerate. They own, among other things, Pizza Hut. They own KFC. They own Taco Bell. They own A&W Root Beer. And there's some other brands in there as well. So Yum Brands would be a good example of a conglomerate. One that you're all familiar with, and it's in the slides, is Disney. Disney owns a ton of different things, from cruise lines, theme parks, movie studios. In terms of different brands, they own Star Wars and LucasArts. They own Marvel Comics and all the Marvel movies. They just bought 20th Century Fox, so now they actually own Bob's Burgers and Family Guy and Simpsons and all of those brands as well. So there's a lot of different conglomerates out there and a lot of different brands owned by these conglomerates. Okay, I'm going to leave off there for right now. Hopefully that sort of makes sense. We'll come back and do another YouTube video later in the week or early next week. And then by middle of next week, we're going to get into some personal finance stuff, which I know is a little bit difficult to do via distance learning. But hopefully it'll be interesting. Hopefully you guys will get something out of it. If you have special requests, if you want to learn about buying cars, if you want to learn about stocks, if you want to learn about resumes, whatever it is, drop me a line either in the comments or just email me. I miss you guys. Hope you all are doing well and hope to see you all real soon.